we will get this P&G meeting called to order at 4:30. The minutes are there. Sean, you want to make a motion to approve them? I guess, can we do that? It's only two of us. Okay.
Yeah, I move that we approve.
I'm going to second that. All in favor?
Aye.
So there we go. Let's dive right into the 400 series. Anybody remember where we left off?
I think
405.7.
0.7,
There
yeah.
we go.
Gotcha.
I'm ready to roll, Ramey.
Good boy.
All right, because we were talking about licensed employee transfers.
405, you said?
405.7.
Thank you.
Mine's not connecting to the networks.
Not connected to the.
Sometimes the auto connect doesn't work.
I told it to manually do it and it's struggling.
Yeah,
It's quite cold.
I have
Yeah.
a struggle with
It is
mine
too cold.
frequently.
So it talks about determining the location where an assignment will be
Yeah.
carried out is the responsibility and sole discretion of the board. That does not sound right.
I would agree with that.
A transfer may be initiated by the employee. I wondered.
I mean,
I
technically
suppose
they
the
can request it.
Okay,
And
I
we
thought
and we
if
have
we
a-
were
and
loose,
we have
that's
a
okay.
and we have a process.
Sure,
Yeah.
all right, I'm fine with that, but
But I'm just talking about that first line.
Yeah, I
Yes,
think
I'm
you
with
want
you.
to replace that with superintendent.
Yeah, or designee.
Designee, right.
But
Yes.
we'll wait for Kim so she can make sure she has that note.
And while, I mean, I think the other thing on this is that while we took the word chapter 20, that the transfer had to come out of negotiated agreements.
Correct.
So we really just kind of did some wordplay.
Yes.
Right? And so we still have some guidance in our negotiated agreement about the transfer process.
Okay.
We got rid of the word transfer and I think replaced it with assignment.
Correct.
Or something.
That's
So
right. Yep.
we're abiding by the law, but yet we haven't stripped away the protections for our teachers from the negotiated agreement.
yeah,
So
that's exactly what we did. We
Okay.
went from transfer to assignment,
We
so.
put our creative thinking caps on to
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
To follow the letter.
follow the letter of the law. Exactly.
So did you get that, Kim?
Superintendent or designee at the top.
Following the spirit of the law.
Gotcha.
I'm okay with it.
Anything else
Oh,
with
mine's
that
not.
part of it? Neither one of them can connect to the server, so.
Yeah, I had mine pulled up, but it's not connecting
Oh.
either.
Wonder if we
Oops,
crashed.
so now I just turned,
Okay.
above.
I'm good.
We're licensed employee evaluation. And, I mean, I don't know how that usually works, but it sounds good to me when I was reading it, but any thoughts or concerns with that, Chase or Brady?
Yeah. See the last sentence?
Mm,
New and probationary licensed employees are evaluated at least twice each
Oh, I
year.
have one.
Okay.
That's
I
that's
Fully
not
val?
that's not how the state model
the chapter
process
reads.
reads. Do you see that, Brady?
Mm-hmm.
New and
Yeah.
probationary licensed employees are evaluated at least twice each year. I don't.
what-
I would just strike that sentence.
So that entire sentence?
That it's starting.
Yeah.
It's responsibility of the superintendent to ensure licensed employees are evaluated. Period.
Period.
End of policy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't catch that first time I read it.
That's easy peasy to me.
Mhm.
So 405.9 then, if everybody's okay with that change to
Yeah,
405.8?
'cause otherwise it's the state standards.
Absolutely.
You're in? Okay. 405.9. The first 3 consecutive years of a licensed employee's contract being probationary. I can't talk. And that only the board, in its discretion, may waive the probationary period.
This is pretty much right out of the code.
Okay.
Yeah.
It only says Iowa Code, Chapter 279. That's written wrong. It says Section 279. It's actually Iowa Code Chapter. Well, they just don't have what the section is, that's the right chapter, but
Yeah.
it's almost word for word out of the code,
Okay.
so.
Yep. I'm fine with
Okay. 406.1, licensed employee compensation.
that. Yeah.
We're good with that?
Yep.
Okay.
Real quick
Compensation
before you go
advance-
on,
oh,
just,
sure.
do you need me to try to find this legal reference for you down here?
I circled it, so I'll look.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry, Tina.
No problem. So compensation advancement, 406.2.
Is it like step and lane, is that what that's
Mhm.
referring to?
Yeah.
Did they just generify it after chapter 20, is that what that is?
But I
Yeah,
think
by
that-
just saying advancement?
I would. Possibly.
I guess so, yeah. Yeah. I looked at this one earlier.
I think it's,
What if we, on 406.1, which you just talked about,
Mhm.
the last sentence is, the base wages of licensed employees are subject to review and modification through the collective bargaining process. What if we added that same sentence?
To the advancement?
Because that's what we utilize.
Yeah.
Is because we've worked a lot on the language. That's a whole language we worked on all last spring, Brady, and we're gonna bring up.
Yeah. Technically, it's not under the, I mean, this is where I don't,
Oh, do you think it's do you think it's prohibited?
base wage is the only thing that's mandatory.
it's not like it's mandatory, but I don't,
Oh.
it's not excluded, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's
we
Oh,
can-
no, not excluded. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah. I'm, no, look, I'm fine if we say that, absolutely. Yep.
And here's-
Maybe yeah, absolutely,
And
yeah.
here's why I say
Yeah.
that. I'm not doing Brady's job for him. I
Yeah.
just think consistency is better.
Yeah.
And I don't want employees coming to the board individually and trying to argue that they should get a step advancement outside of what we've agreed to
Right.
through collective bargaining. So if you have it, that reference, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
I think it makes our jobs a little bit easier when we review.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is just because of the way that it's titled,
Yeah.
I mean, you've got essentially the same title on both of them, just added advancement to the other one, so I like the parallels in the language, because that way, no matter where you look, you're gonna see the same thing.
Right. And then,
Yeah, I'm never gonna argue against the sentence
Okay.
that says
Yeah, I
that
think
it's subject to review and modification through collective bargaining. I'd add it to a lot of things in here.
Well, I wasn't offering that. I was just offering
No,
this
if we
one.
wanna- if we wanna
We're just
open that
saying, if it's
door,
already in one that says
I-
licensed employee
I'm
comp,
okay
and
with
there's one
that.
that says licensed employee comp and
Yeah.
advancement, maybe it ought to be.
But
in
no,
there too.
I agree
Yeah.
with that.
I would
I
say
don't,
it,
right.
it does two things, right? So it is what we're doing.
It is, correct.
Now,
Mhm.
but it sends a message that we intend to keep doing
Yes.
it.
Right.
Both to employees, but also to future board members as
Exactly.
they start looking at stuff
Yeah.
that we, you know,
Right.
as a group
Right.
said, this is what we're doing and this is how
Right.
we do it.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
I'd rather
yeah.
have it in there. Make them have to argue to take it out
Yes.
instead of.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you.
Okay, sorry. We're gonna add that, so let's
Yeah.
go to, dang it. Sorry, my computer is not acting right. Oh.
Is
It's just going around the table.
Yeah,
Okay.
mine did, it did
Yeah.
count, but, yeah.
For all 6.3, continued education credit, sorry.
I think the fill-in date on that is September 10th.
It
That's what
is.
we're using.
And so it should actually read, who wish to obtain additional education for advancement must notify HR by
yeah.
September 10 of the school year,
Yeah, correct.
when
That's right.
advancement occurs. So
Yeah.
you
You
take
wanna
out
get rid of the
proceed-
preceding the actual year?
Right, because
Okay.
because we let them take summer classes
Okay.
and they don't have those credits until the end of August, and so we make it retroactive if they happen to us. Chris Mead is on top of it all the time, so.
Yes. And that's, yes, that is exactly, and that's one that gets utilized a lot. When you look at the board documents there, it's in there all the time, so.
And again, can you clarify why you're taking the preceding part out?
Because I think that this is probably for districts that are making them do it like in the spring of 19 for their 19-20 contract. We'll place somebody on the salary scale, say that like bachelor's plus 15, when we send them their contract in June, but maybe they're taking their last 2 classes to get their master's over the summer.
Mhm.
And then you change it right away.
Yeah, we don't wanna
Okay.
make, we don't wanna
Yeah.
make them wait
Yeah.
the entire year,
And that-
so
I
as
think
long as
that's
they get
good.
it to us by September, we go ahead and give them that credit.
Okay, so, but we'll, okay.
Sorry, what I'm reading here is the sentence basically says you're asking for permission to even take the class. Employees who wish to obtain
Oh.
additional education for advancement.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
That-
Right?
you're
It's
right.
not change my salary now, it's, hey,
Oh,
can I go
that's a
back to
good-
school to be eligible for advancement later?
To get that master's.
That's a good, we don't,
We don't.
Yeah, we don't want that. I mean, it'd be an HR nightmare, can you imagine? Like, what would that look like and keeping track of it?
So we want to just change it to licensed employees who have attained additional education.
Yeah.
yeah, or
Then must
just-
notify by September 10th or whatever.
Yeah, thank you, good catch,
Yeah.
because we don't.
That's
we
why I
don't-
was confused.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, yeah.
Sorry,
I
so
gotcha.
observant.
You are, yep.
So are we not changing
So
any of it,
licensed
just adding the
employees-
date?
Licensed
Ooh.
employees who obtain additional education
We're
for
getting rid of
advancement.
wish.
Yeah. Who obtain. additional
Yeah, because
education.
you don't want superintendent to
No.
approve
Right.
credit outside. Oh. Yeah. These are just not well written though. Because that sentence, the superintendent has the discretion to approve credit outside the employee's area of endorsement or responsibility. We do have some language on that. There are sometimes some questions on what constitutes.
That is true. We're pretty lax on it, but
We
you're
are,
right,
we do
can.
have some.
It's in the collective bargaining agreement.
Mhm.
So I'm fine with that staying in there, but, because superintendent should have that discretion.
Right.
Yeah. So I think to Sean's point, if we remove wish to from that first line to the second paragraph, it should be fine.
Yeah, because there's some coming up that have that same feel on PD, pre-approved by the superintendent and things like that, so. So are we on 4064, is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that is licensed employee compensation for extra duty.
Yeah. I-
Because it says the board may in its sole discretion. We don't have sole discretion in setting that.
I mean, technically you do. Tec-
Yeah, it's,
Yeah,
and
technically
then you
do.
approve it, right? Or-
Yeah. I mean,
Or
it-
not, I guess, but.
You know, it is part of, we put it in the negotiated agreement, but technically the board could do away with it.
Well, what do we, for extra duty, that's where I'm curious, like, are we when you say negotiated agreement, what are you thinking it refers to?
We're not, they're not talking about,
Extra service contracts?
yeah, they're just talking about extra.
Extra duty, so like, if I'm doing announcing at a basketball game, there's some compensation. If I'm doing car line, it's just an extra duty as part of your professional responsibilities as assigned, which
Mhm.
is fine, right? I was trying to figure out what compensated extra duties there might be, if any, that would allow, I don't even know if any exist, but that line, the superintendent will assign the extra duty positions to qualified licensed employees. I'm trying to think of when that would even be relevant, that we would have something in that category. It's not like the superintendent, like Steve's gonna say,
Go to
Brady,
Carl.
you're announcing, yeah, exactly, or you're announcing
the
girls'
basketball
basketball game.
Well,
Is it?
Yeah, I was, when I first was looking at it, just, you know, from the heading, right, I was thinking, oh, like you're coaching something, but it's not like, I'm gonna volunteer to be your football coach either, right? Like, you're hired to do that.
Right.
So yeah, now I'm struggling trying to figure out where it comes
Well, and I
into play
wonder-
either.
Well,
I said to Brady, I said,
These are small.
I mean, when you think about the districts in Iowa, is this written for Lone Tree with 400 students where Kent Crawford may actually be making those decisions?
Yeah,
And that's the problem, is
Right.
that they're writing to Ken with 400 kids in the
Yeah.
district and us with 14,000 kids in the
yep,
district.
I don't disagree with that one. This one, I just was trying to even figure out the,
It's defined as secondary to the major responsibility of the licensed employee.
so,
Which
the duty
could
things
mean
that we
anything.
often talk about would be like car line and, you know, things like that at the elementary
Mm-hmm.
level, and they're not compensated, they're part of professional responsibilities as
Mhm.
assigned, or their responsibilities assigned. There are some maybe at the secondary level that you might do, I'm thinking like the athletic ones.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of it as, it would have to be something that's, well, it wouldn't have to be. I'm thinking it's something outside of your scheduled day, your contract day,
Yeah.
which I don't know,
Chaperone
car line is
dance.
necessarily outside of the day, right? Like that's.
Yeah, right, that's more
still
inside,
in the
yeah, so
day.
more, right.
Yeah, chaperoning a dance
chaperoning
might be a good
dance.
example, if that's required that staff do it. I don't know, it's a weird one.
It's the responsibility of the superintendent to make a recommendation to the board annually as to which licensed employees will have the extra duty and the compensation for extra duty for the board's review.
And I agree with Steve, I think this is because it's written for very small
I do
districts.
Do you know how many extra duties we have in the district?
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I just looked at this one and thought, I don't know if this one's good for
I
us.
mean, I think that the closest I can really think of, Brady, is not extra duties in terms of doing the car line, but it's when we have teachers that we bring back to write curriculum in the summer.
But even then, I'm not making that assignment.
No, no, that's only if nobody will take it.
Oh, yeah.
But we don't necessarily post them either, but we do have a set rate of pay for those extra duties, because they're outside the contract, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'd argue that.
Yeah, so we
that it
set the
doesn't
rate of
ap-
pay for it.
Right, I'd argue it doesn't apply to doing the bus line, because it's within your
Yeah.
contract day. So to Sean's point, it would be
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
outside of.
That word, I don't disagree
Yeah.
with that at all. It's just the word, the way we use that word typically,
Right.
it's within the school day sorts of things.
Yeah, I don't-
Graduation for.
I don't think it's harmful, I don't think, I mean, it's something we're never gonna probably reference, but I don't think it
Do-
harms us by having it.
I think the last statement of the superintendent making a
Mhm.
recommendation annually, I mean, that makes these extra duty things like a permanent annual thing. You're doing
Right.
it all year long, and like, that just doesn't even make any sense to me.
that's if
TQ,
they're talking about, I mean, because we sometimes see that on that extra duty, what's that, personnel?
Yeah, the personal report.
Yeah.
Most stuff's served on like TLC.
well, I was gonna say,
things like
teacher
that.
quality committee membership.
Sure.
That does go before the board,
And that is typically all year.
and that is
And
all
you
year.
have to resign from it, or?
Correct,
I
yeah.
don't know.
It's
But do you
fine.
volunteer or get assigned to it, or do you
You
apply for it?
That's a good point. I think the
Or
most
is
troublesome
that
part
so-
is
volunteering and applying?
Yeah,
is the beginning of that second paragraph, is if somebody wants to take us to task, it's because somebody's gonna get appointed or placed in something, and we haven't posted it. They're gonna wanna be part of the TQ committee. 'Cause it says vacant extra duty
duties.
positions, if there's compensation, will be posted.
I know.
Yeah, that very first sentence is very binary, right?
Yeah.
You're either volunteering or you're being assigned.
Right.
There's no other thing listed there.
Yeah, and again, just the capacity of the system, if there's enough of them,
We have to select. I mean, we have to interview, basically.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think, right, yeah.
I don't know if it's right or wrong to leave it in there, I guess. It's
I don't
muddy
know.
the way it is, in my opinion.
It's what?
It's muddy.
Yeah.
We're not real clear what it is applying to. And if we sitting in here as we're trying to craft this, don't even know what it means, I don't feel comfortable then taking it to the rest of the board
Yeah.
and saying, yep, we're gonna accept that as policy because we don't even know how to define it.
What if you remove that middle paragraph.
Just put the whole thing.
Remove it?
Yeah, just delete that language. I mean, I'm with you. This was one I flagged just because I didn't fully understand its connection to how we do things or what it would mean, but.
Yeah, Chase, what will happen if we just remove that middle paragraph? Because I mean,
Nothing. I mean, it just gives us the right to compensate people for extra duties if we want to. Doesn't say you have to. We don't let people double dip, it's against the law, so
Yeah.
it's intrinsically something that would be outside their contract day.
And the third sentence, or the third paragraph talks about it still would assign compensation for
Yeah.
it. but-
Yeah, because the first one means that if someone came and said, well, how come I have to do bus duty? Which we've always said is part of your professional
Right.
responsibility, that first line does cover it.
Right.
Because it doesn't mean you're gonna get compensated.
Right.
But if compensation does exist,
Yeah,
yeah. It's just to me, that middle paragraph is,
I think it's fine.
I'm okay with that. If that makes sense, you know, to us as how you're going to define it,
right.
Yeah.
then that's fine, right? Because if somebody else asked the question, we'd be like, I don't really know what it means. But it's your policy. As long as you
Yeah,
can argue it,
Yeah.
that's better.
yeah.
okay, is that good?
Yep.
Moving on.
All right.
Um,
4065,
Ooh, we have options.
yeah, option one. Why do we have options?
Nobody
No, I
gets
know,
choices
it's part
around
of
here.
the-
Choices
it's-
bad.
Wait, what?
Oh,
I wonder if the second option didn't pertain to a district our size or something
Oh,
like that. I'd have to look at it. Yeah, no.
So we need
Yeah.
to fix that.
Kim and I just
Mhm.
culled some of the second options out because they weren't relevant to us.
Yeah.
Okay,
Physical work. Isn't, yeah, isn't that the highlighted, isn't licensed employees who work full-time are eligible to participate in life?
We can pull
disability?
I mean, what we really need to do, rather than try to wordsmith it here, is we just need to
Add it.
pull the language from our plans. I mean, we have a plan that
It's the lang,
it outlines all of it, who's eligible, and
Yeah.
then we can get with Kira and Brandy and say,
Right.
hey, fill in these spots for us. You know,
Okay.
we're not looking to, we have an insurance committee that all this would go through,
yeah,
and so.
I think it is actually, yeah, I'm with you. I think that the other benefits are full-time. And I think it's life and disability.
Other than,
You see what I'm saying? Licensed
Yeah.
employees,
we'll just check on it.
Yeah,
to make
exactly.
sure. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
but then we'll complete it.
Just so there's a note too, there's a blank in the second to last paragraph too that did not get highlighted.
Got it. I did just circle that. I saw
Okay,
it. Thank you,
thanks.
Where was it? Second to last paragraph.
Yeah.
In the fourth paragraph.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, there you
Is there? I understand going and looking at the language that we have already and making it more specific. Do we have anything either in that, or do we want to add it that talks about our, whatever it is, health insurance committee? That's to how we do it, as opposed to
go. Mhm.
benefits determined by the board, or required by law. I mean, that's still true, I guess, we still
It
approve
is.
it all, but I don't know if you want to mention the specifics to how we do it, or if that's overkill.
Well, again, I like that committee. I mean, I like that process. As a longish time member of it.
I don't,
So
I
I'm
mean,
not
it's,
opposed.
yeah, I mean, I think it's, insurance is one of those things you can't have in collective bargaining agreements. And
Right.
so putting it in a policy does for future boards say this is, and for administrations, this is how we run this. We go through our insurance committee.
Yeah.
You know, so I think if we're gonna do that,
Does that,
let us take a
is that
crack.
committee specific to just the healthcare
Yep.
Yeah.
benefits, as
Yeah.
opposed to life
Um,
insurance and things like that?
Well, that's all they really talk about,
It's
but it
health.
doesn't necessarily,
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily have to be,
Because we do wellness things out of that
yeah,
committee.
but that'd all be, that's all out of the health fund.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Or out of the, yeah.
I just wonder if you could make it fairly
Cover.
generic, but still have it in there where the line reads something like, determined by the board as recommended by a committee.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to go into the specifics of the committee or what the
Right.
committee's actually doing or
But I think
who
it's
makes it up or anything like that.
With advice from the district's health insurance committee.
Or just committee. Because just think, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just think, you know.
Yeah, I don't mind it. Which provide or administer the program. The board, with advice from the district health committee, will select. I mean, if you want to be careful, right, if you say recommendation has a little bit more like the, I mean, that's sort of what we do, but that gives the committee more oomph and weight than advice in my book. But you might want to run that by legal if that's what you're thinking.
Yeah.
I like it though, I like that sentiment. I mean, if we're, you know, I mean, it's definitely a
I like that
multi-party
with
committee.
advice. I
Yeah,
mean, I think
exactly.
that's a-
Board's on it, so.
Oh,
It's
what were you
a
thinking,
statement,
Chase?
but it's a
You have
softer
that
statement.
hand, that
I know.
deep
I-
in thought.
I'm-
Chase has a thought.
Yeah.
No, we can't let it be too generic. I mean, if we go down this path of putting the committee in there, I think we do need to define it. I don't think we can just
Okay.
lay it open as a committee. And because it's not negotiations anymore, technically, is it a standing committee? I guess it falls under the,
It's a standing committee.
Yeah.
I guess it falls under the current board committee framework, and so we want to look at that because.
Any plan changes and things like that are gonna come from that committee.
Right. But my thought is, now that it's not in the negotiated agreements.
Right.
How do you ensure membership of all groups?
Yeah.
That's what we need to go, that's what I was saying, that's what my wheels are turning is, if we're gonna set that as the committee, we need to make sure that it has representation from all different employee groups,
Yeah,
including our
it's-
non-represented.
Policy then
Yeah.
in the membership.
And we don't really, because I think that how that reads right now, like, we don't want outsiders on that committee that's never been
No.
community members on that committee, and quite frankly, I would advocate against that, because it's an internal,
We've had retired.
So, are you arguing
Yeah,
to be more explicit?
I am, if we're gonna
Okay.
put it
So
in there.
can we have
yeah.
in the language on the code number, 406.5, as determined by, you can call it the district's healthcare committee.
Your
or
entrance
vice
committee,
or
yeah.
whatever. And then can we have a 406.5G or whatever the guideline is that
That's
says,
what I was trying to think,
here's
is
what
we
the
need to come back and. to
Yeah.
makeup
Yeah.
of the committee would
Yeah.
look
Yeah.
like, or.
Yeah, that's probably a good conversation with that committee anyway. The composition has changed, because you do have, historically, we've had retired employees on it because they're still on district
Because they're on
health
because
insurance.
they're on the insurance, right? So that's
Exactly.
gotta, right.
So they're not really, they're still an insider to the plan, but not an
Because they're-
employee of the district.
Because the plan impacts them.
But it's
Right.
not just some random
No.
No, exactly.
person that
Right.
sits on city council that is
Yes,
on the committee.
exactly.
That's what I
Community
think
member
Chase
coming
was
in
getting
and-
at.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, Sean, that's a good, I
Okay.
think that's,
So we're okay with that?
Needs a little work, but. I think we're
Right, but
making
no,
a
I
lot.
mean, for the purpose of just rolling along, 406.6, tax shelter programs.
I think it's funny, that's just called a tax shelter.
Yeah.
I know.
Sounds so illicit.
It's missing a period at the end of the
Just
sentence.
a retirement program?
Yeah.
Well, I think, yeah,
I mean, they could have them, they're really heavily regulated by the state.
Yeah.
There's only a handful of providers that the state allows you to choose from,
yeah.
so.
This is much more, the way it actually works is much more
Yeah.
dictated by the state than what this language
Right.
says. I mean, the district doesn't have discretion.
Yeah, you
There's
could.
your providers.
This provides a lot more discretion than what we actually have as employees.
Yep.
I.e., we don't need to mess with it.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next.
I would agree with
like
In my head, though,
employee
is
resignation.
is this IFRS or is this separate thing?
Separate.
I think it's
It's like an
separate.
additional thing.
Four,
that-
there's-
457.
Yep.
That's all.
Yep.
So resignations.
Are they notifying HR?
Yeah, well,
Or-
superintendent or designee.
Yeah, I think superintendent's fine. I mean,
If you do the designee change, I think, yeah.
Because most of them go right to HR.
Yeah, that's why I said superintendent or designee.
Well, there's been a few times when we've had superintendents, and there's been a few
Yeah,
times when
we've
we've
put in
specifically
HR.
put HR, and
Yes.
it's like, if HR's the one,
Yeah.
it
So.
should say HR in my head, but.
Do you, I mean, I don't care. Should it just say HR?
I'm good with that.
Okay, well, get rid of super. You're off the hook, Steve.
I don't disagree. Run it by Joe. You're not gonna like changes like
It's fine.
Yeah, he's gonna see all of
You're
it.
gonna see all of them,
that.
yeah.
I know, I'm just
Before
saying.
we-
I
Yeah.
That's
get
why
it.
we're crazy.
I know he's gonna say designee. Yeah, this one seems.
HR is an entity.
Okay, but
It's a
my
whole
question
lot
is,
of
the
it.
way this is written, it says they must notify within the time period set to return a contract. But we see mid-year resignations sometimes, don't we? So how is that covered?
So
It-
this means, I think this is talking about,
The mid-year stuff's coming up.
yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So never mind, I see that.
It's, yep. 'Cause
So
the-
besides that change, anything else needs to be changed with this?
No, it's. I talked
Nope,
about
all right. Now that's the part that we're getting, I asked.
There we go.
Ugh. Why is my computer not active?
Yeah, this is, you're right, 472, I was like, okay, these are the.
Yeah,
little
these
tricky.
are the releases, okay.
Mhm.
So again, it says notice to the super, it should be HR. Right, Chase? Because then you present that to
I
us for approval.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's a,
Tricky.
yeah, yeah, HR's fine.
Because it still.
What is your
comes-
concern?
I know.
Well, because that one before is just really somebody basically saying, hey, I'm not gonna come back.
Okay.
And so we give out the contracts in May, we wanna know by June 30, they say,
Yeah.
hey, we're not coming back.
Mhm.
This is when somebody's
Here,
teaching
mhm.
and it's the middle of September and they want to break their contract. And so the circumstance is just a little bit different. I'm very, very confident with our current HR team that like they're not just like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
and go, but I think this is yeah, and it's just a different, this is a higher bar of who you need to notify
Yeah.
when you're trying to break your contract, rather than simply not renew your contract. I don't think
If that happens
is
today, who does that person go to? Who do they tell?
their principal and probably me.
So,
They don't go to Steve.
right.
Yeah.
So they
So
go.
that's all I'm saying, we should
Yeah,
have it match
yeah,
whatever
so-
they're doing.
Because I think even in that case,
Yep.
HR will be notified.
Yeah, and so that's why.
Hopefully, yeah, I mean, I'm sure even future HR folks
Right.
will know that I have to go to my HR director, and that person will be smart enough to
But
know
you're
how
not,
that
you're not
conversation.
HR though.
No, but there's a director underneath me, and it reports up through me.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's more problematic. That's the easy part. Again, I go to you don't want a teacher calling you all, being like, well, I called HR and they won't release me, the board can release me, will you please release
No.
me? And that's what,
but
some of that language.
your problem is the second line.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what gets me more concerned.
Licensed employees may be released at the discretion of the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that,
I think it probably has to say something, if we leave that sentence in there, it has to say something like, with the recommendation of
The
the
very next
super.
sentence says, only in unusual and
Yeah.
extreme circumstances will the board do that.
yeah, and then the board has the sole discretion to determine what constitutes unusual and extreme. Yeah, I don't necessarily wanna, I'm just gonna say, we internally typically work through these, and it's not
Yeah.
it's not a
You don't
1 hour
yeah,
conversation, it's
yeah.
usually a multi-day, multi-hour conversation.
board
about
never
what's
gets
going on.
involved.
No.
And so that's where I would just be like, that I just.
Because you're trying to determine whether it's even the right thing for the employee.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly,
Like,
what's
it's-
going on, you really wanna have conversations with them, like what, okay, what's happening?
So
in
should
the
this
house?
be, even though the board never gets involved, the way this reads, we potentially could.
Well, I think that the superintendent recommendation to the board, Because it will go to you.
Yeah.
Superintendent. There's language in other sections that would have that feel to it. If we're going there, I have some concerns about other parts of this, but,
It's,
release from a contract will begin finding a suitable replacement.
Yeah.
that's not how,
Not
most
really
jobs
how they
work.
work always, though. You know what I'm saying? And I think just practically,
No,
sometimes,
it's
yeah,
not.
sometimes that would maybe not be in the best interest of the district. Because let's say you maybe are struggling, but it really is the best thing for the district to say, we do need to, like, this is the best thing for kids. This person needs, our relationship needs to end.
Yeah, but that's when that conversation, I mean,
Yep.
I don't think the district will keep someone in a role that clearly doesn't want to be there. We don't,
Yeah.
But I think you satisfy that by changing the will be contingent to may be contingent,
Sure.
I guess.
Well, how many of those are like long-term subs or?
Well, this wouldn't be long-term sub. Well, it could be, I suppose.
Yeah,
It
that's
depends
what
if we
I'm-
go vacancy
yeah, I mean,
versus
if
leave.
Right.
This to me is resignation creating vacancy.
But even then, resignating, creating, I mean, I'm just trying to read it from the broadest standpoint. Resignation creating vacancy doesn't prevent us from saying, put a substitute teacher in there in the short term,
Not in the short term. you're
right?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you know, if they
In the long
bail
term,
on us
though.
in October, we're not putting a sub in there for the whole year, but to the point of, I mean, if we mutually decide we don't want this person in there,
Yeah,
we put a sub in there, we post it, we hire it, that might take a month.
yeah.
But do we want to
Well,
have that
this
person
is
in
where
there
the
as opposed to
BOE
the
though,
person?
Yeah, I mean, it's the last set, well,
Yeah.
oh, you're talking about something different than BOE.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just talking about for the BOE, they're playing a little bit of hardball on vacancies
On whether it's a
right now.
vacancy or
Yeah.
whether
Or whether
it's,
it's
yeah.
a leave. I just don't want also the district, all of us around the table, to also run counter to what the BOE is requiring now. There's just
Yeah.
some things, I think in this one, to me, there's some things to try to sort out.
I mean, I get Brady's point, but I think it's the district's decision of how much hardball do we want to play with employees. I mean, their professional responsibilities, they can't get a contract by two districts at the same time. The last sentence requires now that the superintendent reported to the BOE. That's the real hook. If you go to a teacher and say, well, you can quit, we're not releasing you,
Yeah.
which in turn means you can't go work in Cedar Rapids until we do.
right.
That makes them really think twice. And so, you know, where it becomes sticky is if you want to, where it goes to who's at the table is the teacher's spouse gets a job in Colorado, so they're moving to Denver. Are we really going to hold that person hostage?
Because
And we're
that's
not going
all that's
to.
in my
right?
head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When did you say to
Yeah.
somebody, no, you can't quit? You
So-
have the conversations ahead of time, figure out, is there stuff we can do to make this
Yeah,
better,
yeah, yeah,
if you
yeah.
want to
So
keep
I'll-
them.
I'll just
But when
share
just
with
say,
you-
No, you can't.
Remember
Yeah.
we said these may not be written for
Right,
Iowa
they're
City.
not, exactly.
Right.
If you're in Waukon.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
Trying to
And
jump
it's a
ship for
special
the
ed
better.
teacher,
Yeah.
or it's a CTE teacher, it's your
Or-
Calc teacher,
I'm with you.
they say,
Nope.
we don't care if this is Stockholm and you're going through the syndrome, you're
Yeah.
staying and you're finishing the year out.
That makes sense.
So
And-
that's why I'm trying to, sometimes I have to read these and I have to think about, okay, what if I'm in Waukon, what does this make me do?
We had the Lone Tree superintendent called me the first week of August because had a teacher that signed a contract down there, and then she just said teaching wasn't for me. I don't want to be here. I promise you, I'm not going anywhere. Well, 2 weeks later, he gets a reference call from Iowa City
Yeah.
because she's jumped ship to come to Iowa City. So this is to protect Lone Tree from us stealing their teachers that are on it. And we weren't doing that intentionally.
Right.
Right.
She was
No.
dishonest,
Yeah, yeah,
but that's
From
why
that
this.
perspective,
Yeah, that's
I
where
see
this
it,
is.
and, you know, and I'm looking at, you know, from a standpoint of I have employees all the time that just decide they want to leave.
Yeah.
I don't get to tell them no.
Yeah.
They give me notice
Yeah.
sometimes, But I can't just say, nope, I don't allow it, you have to stay working here, right? Like, that's my perspective. It's like,
But your employees don't have a contract though, right?
no.
I
but-
mean, and that's what I'm saying, these people, mostly, we're talking about the licensed employees that sign a contract that says, beginning in August till May,
Yeah.
I am your employee. So, because from a university perspective, I have contracts that people sign and we don't release them until we get someone else to cover their classes.
I would, in a slightly different look is your employees, I would say this is the trade-off for some of the protections teachers get under the law, right? Like, the termination statutes are so favorable to procedure and process and making sure everything's done right. This is the other side of that, right? What's good on the back end has got to be good on the front end. It's kind of how I see some of these things. But a lot of these are all going to come down to who's interpreting it and who's in the seat. I mean, we can't.
I don't know which one of them said it, but I do like the suggestion of release from a contract may be contingent.
Yeah,
I like that
yeah.
may piece,
May.
because
Yeah.
then I think that covers that
Right.
instead of being will. But everything else, I don't know, it's a contract.
Yeah, I agree. I
Yeah.
don't want to give up our ability,
Yeah.
whether or not we use it or not.
Okay,
to
is it the
do
board's
something.
sole discretion to determine what constitutes unusual and extreme? Are we there, or?
No, we were down in the second paragraph.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, we were
Oh,
done.
yeah, so we're gonna make an employee,
I like
but
just the
may,
generic
as it
district.
says, may, after it's signed, may be required to pay.
Board, not administration. It's the district's sole discretion.
Upon
Mhm.
return, may, okay. Failure of the licensed employee to pay these dismissed may result in cause of action being filed, small claims court.
And maybe it's just me, the second sentence,
Which paragraph?
I would potentially add something like licensed employees who have requested to be released, maybe at the discretion of the board. Because as a standalone sentence, it says we could just release people
Yeah, exactly.
whenever we want to.
Yeah. I like that, Chance, you're right.
I
You released
I know,
me.
it's
Sounds good.
embedded in the paragraph, but the sentence
Yeah.
itself says
No.
licensed employees to be
PowerPoint,
released.
blow it up
Yeah.
really big, so
Yeah.
the only thing you see is licensed employees may be released at discretion.
And then we can run
You
around
go.
like, you're released, Brady.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
released.
Yeah.
You're released. Okay. Anything else with this one? I think we've jumped around in all three paragraphs.
We have.
Okay, we're good.
Can I ask a clarifying question then? In paragraph 1, last sentence, did we change the word "the board" or the phrase "the board will have sole discretion" to something else, or are we sticking with "the board will have sole discretion to determine what constitutes unusual and extreme circumstances"?
I think the last two sentences go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Right? So if it's only in those circumstances that the board's going to do something, then the board has to define what that is.
Because it's, those two lines
They
go together.
I'm not saying they need to be in there, I'm just saying I think they go together one way or the
Yeah,
other.
I don't, okay.
Because if there's a dispute, and I'm assuming this is when the board gets involved, it comes before us, we have to sort of hear both sides of the situation and determine whether or not what they're requesting rises to that unusual and extreme. Because we're only getting involved.
Yep. So I
it's
suppose it's
basically
not
like-
done until the board votes, is that what we're saying? I just, a lot of the things that we
Yes,
work.
I don't even think the board, I mean, these are personnel decisions.
Yeah, that's
No.
right.
I don't
I'm
think
thinking
they
it should
be-
really say something like, it's extreme circumstances, the board does it without recommendation from the superintendent, right? Like we're countermanding the order, right? Like,
Sorry, I'm not following you.
I
Why
think
would I say
it's-
without?
if someone wants to be released from the contract and you guys do all your work and you're like, yep, that sounds good, and you tell us and we say no, that's one of the, I think it's more like you guys have said no and we're like, no, get them out of here, and we're just overriding what you're saying. Like that's the extreme circumstance,
Yeah, I mean,
right? Like we are going against what
What the
district has said.
recommendation is. So if it comes to you on consent or whatever, and you pull it and say, nope,
I think it's
Either
usually
way.
the other way around, right?
But see, I think I follow what Sean is saying, that for whatever reason, you all, the super says no, and then on our consent agenda or whatever, we're like, nope, this person needs to go, based on information we know. I think that's what
that'd
we
be a
were
pretty extreme case,
thinking.
right?
Sure.
I mean, I think that's what it's
Yeah.
outlining.
Because I'm looking at it from the other perspective of, we say, no, we're not gonna release somebody, or we're gonna release you, but you have to pay cost, or da-da-da, and they say, I don't like that, I'm appealing that decision to the board. And so then they come to the board asking to be released after we've said we won't release them. That's
Well,
how,
I think that's what they're saying.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying that after we say to get them, to release them, you're
No.
saying
No,
don't
you
release
you
them.
were
denied
saying
the
the same
release
thing.
I think it's
request.
the other way
They go to
around.
the board, and the board says, actually, we're
Overridden.
gonna release him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Only in unusual and extreme circumstances will the board release a licensed employee from the contract against the district's wishes or the superintendent's recommendation, or is, I don't know.
Counter to the recommendation of the superintendent.
Yeah, because I mean, that's
If
the
that
only
release
time
runs
we
counter to
would
the
Yeah.
recommendation.
get involved with that.
Yeah.
It just opens that door for, it's rare that we're denying,
Because
really, in
that's-
our district, so it might not be that often.
That gives the employee that appeal.
Appeal to the.
There's a right.
And that's what, I think that's what we're getting at, that
Yeah.
it should be a way for them to appeal,
Sure.
and only in unusual circumstances would the board have that discretion.
So,
It
so,
should be common that we release them from a contract if you have recommended it.
Yes.
Right, yes.
Right?
Yes.
That
Right,
should
right,
be
right.
rare.
Yeah.
so you'd have to go to closed session.
But it should also be common that you don't release them, if the superintendent says don't release them.
Right.
Right, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it should be
Yeah, well, I mean,
extreme
that's
that we're
gonna, that,
going
I see
against
what,
you're
I know
saying.
what you, because you're like, what unusual extreme circumstances would the board have to go counter to, if their recommendation is,
yeah.
Released or not released.
Because
Yeah.
we typically work pretty closely together on
Yeah.
these,
yeah.
But,
So I can see both sides, that's my problem. I can see why it should be there and why do,
can I ask how that would look if we added that sentence from a contract in a circumstance running counter to the recommendation of superintendent or designee? So would that require then, because it's a personnel issue of that nature, a closed session, or no? Or could you do that on a consent agenda? Or how would that,
I think
In the
since
event
it's
it
the
happens.
discussion of someone's personnel position, it has to be closed.
You have to
I
request
think
it.
you'd have to
Yeah.
have a closed session and then an open vote.
Right.
Okay.
Right, you can't have
Okay.
it closed.
But, I don't know, licensed employee,
yeah, and then,
I mean, you're right, it doesn't happen very often, but,
That's what an unusual and extreme means.
yeah.
Could equal 0 times.
I mean,
yeah, it's like,
because
when
we've
do you
been
ever say
very,
we're gonna keep them, when they clearly want out?
we don't, I mean.
Yeah,
you could-
Well, only if it's, if they decide that they took a job here, and it's usually the other way around, but maybe they live on the southern part of the Solon district, and they
Okay.
really wanna work in Solon, but there wasn't a job available, so they come to us. Well, then Solon gets a late resignation, and it's August 23rd,
Yeah.
and they wanna go be
Yeah.
wanna go be a teacher and coach in Solon. I'm like, no.
yeah. 'cause
Yeah.
it's
We're not
August
releasing, yeah, we're not
23rd.
releasing.
That's
you, like,
usually, that's the
it-
situation, it's
it-
right in the cusp of the beginning.
And
of
but
the
to
year.
me,
Yeah,
that doesn't fall under unusual and extreme.
Right.
right.
That falls under,
Yeah, and in a case like
Comfort.
that, I would
I would say, yeah, no.
probably
we're-
take whatever the recommendation was.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
But I
don't
think
know.
what we're unusual and extreme,
Yeah.
Like, it's gonna
someone
have
is
to be somebody
August
has a real
23rd,
grudge against
and-
somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah,
their husband got hit by a Mack truck, and now
Yeah.
they have to move
Oh,
to
we don't, I
Hawaii.
mean, yeah.
You know what I mean? That's,
Yeah,
and
we
you're
like that.
saying,
We
no,
don't-
we need you
yeah,
here,
that's
sorry
not-
for your
no,
loss.
That doesn't happen. That-
Right,
well,
so I don't see when this clause would ever be triggered,
Sure.
but for the protection, I guess, or,
Let's just think about, how the board make up.
Change,
That could have
that's right.
been.
yeah.
yeah,
And, I mean, that's.
yeah. Those two sentences, I'm just like,
Now, to your point, though, I think it's fair to say that it's, you don't want to release them, and the board says yes, as opposed to the other way
Yeah,
around.
right.
Because I think that's,
good.
but it's specifically you want to release them and the employee has asked for it, I don't know why we would ever
No,
say
you
no
would-
at
yeah.
that point,
Yeah,
right?
it's- yeah, we're not
Specifically,
saying-
they've asked for it.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
So
you
that's
could
not
just,
gonna come into
you say
play.
only in unusual and extreme circumstances will the board not follow the recommendation of the superintendent or designee.
Yeah.
Yes, something like that,
We could.
I think is
I
what.
mean, if you wanna have the board involvement in that, then that would answer it.
Do-
But
It's hard to define what the extreme case would look like
And that's the
until it
problem.
happens, right?
Yeah.
And it could happen
Because it says the
somewhere.
board will have sole discretion to determine what that is.
Yep.
And that could be problematic depending on the makeup of the board, because
Sometimes just
I'm
trying to
just
keep
saying-
things, so you guys have to deal with it. And in all honesty, right, like, you don't wanna be
No.
dealing with some of that day-to-day stuff.
So
and-
this, right, the teacher who lives in northeast Johnson County, slow plays us until the 22nd, gets a gig in Solon,
Yeah,
we say no. They know some people on the board, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
I have 2 young kids, I'm not
They go to the
gonna
board,
be able
exactly,
to
complete
drop
hardship,
them off.
retaliated
It's gonna be
against,
hard, yeah.
right, yeah.
That's, and so it's not the words on paper, it's what they then come up with. But that, again, that just goes to who's sitting in that chair, this chair,
in these
those chairs, so we're never gonna be able to find it. I'm fine the way that we've kind of wordsmithed it with the recommendation.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm good with
And
that.
that sentiment of like,
Well,
this is,
they're
yeah,
not approved yet.
Right.
We can, if
Yeah.
yeah,
people think more about it and,
yeah.
okay. 407.3. Because we have to save time for, what else is on our agenda? Okay, just setting the next policy. I need a meeting. So licensed employee retirement, any issues with this?
I don't think so.
Okay,
And those sound like all things that we do.
yeah.
I didn't have anything on this one.
Yeah.
Licensed employee suspension, 407.4. Is that how this happens now?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
that's what that means.
Okay, I'm just asking for clarification then, so it specifically says they're suspended pending action on a discharge. Is there any time when they would be suspended for a time
Mm.
and then back to work? Cause it doesn't read that way.
Could we add, I'm with you, Sean, how about the third line?
No, it does.
If it
You know,
said and/or
it
for
says-
disciplinary
it
purposes.
says-
Oh, yeah, it does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
discharge
My bad,
for
my bad.
investigation, yeah.
Yeah, I think
And
if
for
you-
disciplinary purposes.
And
Yeah.
or for disciplinary purposes.
Yeah.
If you added the word or
And/or.
and/or
yeah.
for then it would maybe be a little clearer.
Yeah.
My bad, yeah, that's good, I'm sorry.
I was like, oh my gosh, I hope that's not how it reads.
I know, I sort of stopped
Well,
reading.
Brady and I are gonna have
Stop
that.
reading.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh boy.
Yeah, we gotta go back.
Oh boy.
There's some
Okay.
I
things
think the
we're
order
working
is
on.
important.
I do too, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I
That's
do-
what I'm
I
saying. It should be
agree.
and
I
or,
agree.
yeah.
That's an easy fix.
Mhm.
Okay. 407.5.
Oh,
Yeah,
talk
lots of
about an
yellow.
old boy on this one. Hmm.
Reduction in force.
Yeah.
It's a little too close to home.
Yep.
Mhm. So this is another one that prohibited language under chapter 20, so we
Mhm.
don't have it in negotiated agreements anymore. We did have language in negotiated agreements, but even that language, the language in negotiated agreements isn't very good, I don't think. I think it's kind of convoluted because of how far it breaks it down in terms of seniority and
Oh,
and
yeah.
everything else, right? It's
Right.
not just necessarily based on licensure and last one in, first one out.
Well,
which is
within
kind of
areas
the same.
identified in section 5 below,
Yeah.
employees with the least seniority in the district shall be reduced first.
But aren't there like 20 areas?
There are, yeah. You get into that with the seniority list.
Yeah.
It is, I mean, the big change, of course, in the law is removing seniority
Right.
as the dominant factor. And so that's what
Right.
the language in, was highlighted. That's what
Yeah.
they're saying. This will be considered only when the foregoing factors are relatively equal between licensed employees. Well, of course, we'd all around the table say relatively equal is a little squishy. It's hard to, who gets to make that determination? All that, so that's all, I mean, it is, this is where you're, this will be a big shift.
So Brady knows that I'm not a fan of doing things completely based on seniority. Normally, when we talk about transfers, talk about placement, I think we have to look at what's best for not only the school, but for the institution as a whole. However, on this one, on a reduction in force, where it's just a budget and we have to go from 700 teachers to 650 teachers, I have to admit, I do lean more towards our newest teachers are the ones that should go first. I don't think that a reduction in force when we're doing it for budgetary constraints should be a out card for our principals who haven't done the work of either building capacity in their staff or doing the evaluating of their staff that are floundering but might have more seniority as a way to get rid of them in favor of younger teachers. I mean, this is for when events outside of our control. 0% for 4 years in a row, so we have to cut like we did last year.
Maybe, I mean, I'm reading the very first paragraph talks about, a reduction of force may be a result of all these different things, and only one of them really talks about budget.
Mm-hmm.
Right, there could be a lot of reasons where you would change your staffing, and could be we're cutting programs because we don't think it's the right program for us anymore, and that's a different reason as to why people would be being let go.
I guess it's just a different definition of reduction in force,
Yeah.
right? I just don't, I hear what you're saying, but I look at that as,
They've defined every possible
Yeah.
mechanism.
Yeah,
I
that
mean-
you would look, but I think when you look down at the criteria that the super would use, that plays into like all that highlighted stuff. If you follow that, that sort of to me, I mean, I know Brady, you were saying relatively equal between licensed employee, you had an issue with that, but if you look at all those 4 bullets, you would think it gives people with more seniority that fair shake if they fall under all that. I mean, I don't think if the super is following those 4 criteria, I don't think it will allow building administrators to go after those employees that you mentioned, Chase.
oh, I unfortunately, I have to disagree with you, because we can read some of those words, endorsements and educational preparation within the grade level. Let's just use elementary. You've got a 10-year veteran who's at odds with the principal, and he or she has taught all of their time in 4th and 5th grade. You have a 2nd-year teacher that's teaching 1st grade. Teacher only has 1 year experience in 1st grade, but that's where you're going to keep the opening and you're going to get rid of the higher level teacher.
Mm-hmm.
They both have the same endorsements, but that teacher, it's only been here 2 years.
Yep.
The principal can make that legit argument that they should keep the 2nd-year teacher over the 10-year, but I cannot believe I'm making these arguments for you. And it's
I appreciate it. Yeah, I
it's
mean,
like-
but I don't have to.
I mean,
Yeah,
you're
well,
gonna ask for a recording, and I'm gonna be the
I am, that's
spokesperson
right.
for the
Hey, I'm already
for the
recording
Iowa
it.
State
That's
Teacher
exactly. Yeah,
Association.
You're our administrator of the year, don't worry.
My name
Yeah.
is Matt Degner.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, it's the truth.
That's a good point.
Qualifications for co-curricular programs.
I was gonna bring that one up, because
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah, yeah.
that's another one that's ripe for abuse.
Yep.
I mean,
So
I have to
what
admit,
can
from
we
my-
put in there that people can't abuse?
I mean, but I say all that, but in all honesty, as an officer inside the corporation, this is the language that you want.
Because my thing is-
As an executive, for the district, reporting to the board, my advice as a professional is, you want this language, because it provides you the most flexibility possible.
And isn't it the professional, like the super
Yeah.
in your job, to then look at those suggestions to spot that?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
Along with, I don't know if you, I mean, you work with.
We work with Brady.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to spot that. I don't know, we can say, do not go after your senior staff.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't write that into policy.
You don't want to, right, it's our job to ensure that we follow our
The
equity.
letter and the spirit.
And the spirit, yeah, we follow our non-discrimination policies,
Yeah.
our equity guidelines
Yes.
and plans. But, yeah, I might have my own personal take, but as
Because what we
one of your
don't,
lead,
we
you know,
can't
district
craft
leaders.
policy that we know legal won't sign off on.
Right.
I was just gonna throw out there, you know, I think we've kind of gotten into the idea that this is specific to this person or that person, like, I know I'm getting rid of a teacher at this elementary school or whatever it is, right, and I gotta pick one. I'm wondering, when it talks about the board shall detail the process utilized for making recommendations, I'm thinking back to the process we used to determine like what areas we were going to cut people from, the part before this, right?
Sure.
So when we had this iterative process, right, Steve, with,
Yeah.
all right, are we gonna cut from, you know, these Title I areas, or are we gonna reduce a bigger number at the secondary, like,
Right.
that process, I don't know if that is warranted to have a little bit of discussion there, right, like, or, you know, does that apply to that process versus just the process
Well,
of picking which person's
Sure, if you
getting
decide you wanna
knocked
change
out?
your library program, that means you're gonna change your library program on what it looks like, cause it's covered in that first
But
paragraph.
would
And then you
not-
can
yeah.
reduce, but then you could reduce using this language, this is one of the things that I have a concern about, 'cause it's not just financial considerations. These are just program changes. The way the language is written, in that first paragraph, right?
Right.
So that's where I'm going, okay, the board has exclusive authority to determine the appropriate number of licensed employees. A result may occur as a result of, but not be limited to, I mean, that's maximum flexibility.
It is.
It means you could do it for whatever, that's what that language says.
Yeah, so that's when Sean corrected me earlier, because I was just talking about when we find ourselves in a
Financial,
financial
right.
situation.
And so
But the
that's
other
where I'm
piece
just
is- That's what I'm
going,
saying.
And I think that covers that process piece.
But it could be a combination.
It could be.
We're in a financial crisis and we want to keep classroom teachers instead of librarians.
Right.
But, okay, yes, absolutely, but the board could just decide, we're doing this, and it doesn't matter what admin's saying,
Yep.
or what,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And then the process that's used would be then, it's a little Wild Westish to me, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
No, well, it's
I mean, I don't think
it's
around
not
this table.
wild. It's not Wild Westish. It's non-public education-ish, right? I mean, this
thought
is
we were in public schools.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
This
exactly.
is more.
yeah.
This is
Yeah.
more like the private
Yeah.
sector.
Yeah.
Yes,
You have to change your programming. You have
Completely.
to have it, and
Yeah.
we're going to give you the
Yeah.
different criteria. We just want you to set it out. That's what this is.
I don't
That's a
disagree with
big. So
that's where it's a big change.
That's where it's a big change.
Yeah,
Right?
this was a
It's-
signature part of the legislation.
Yeah, this is right. This is.
Yep.
They
This
might
is
as well
what we
say
need to-
this
yeah.
was the purpose of removing.
Yeah,
the
I
chapter.
just have to say, and I understand, and I don't, you know, and I think Chase did and Steve as well, articulated some of the concerns. I mean, then there's certainly, you know, out there, because I do think in practice, we have a great level of trust and collaboration, so I feel good about that, but we're not all gonna be sitting around the
Right.
table, you know, always. And so I think that it is something that is open for, I don't know, abuse is a pretty hard word, but it's pretty, there's some of the language is pretty, you know, it is pretty, it's just, there's a lot of interpretations that can be made, and, you know, your administrative teams have a lot of discretion
Yeah, it provides.
to do,
I
as
think
does your
you
board
said
in
it
determining what they
provides
wanna do in terms
ultimate
of programs.
flexibility to the administration, and it does.
Right. Yep.
I mean, that's why I said it's
It's
good
hard.
language for the
Yeah,
administration.
but
Sorry, Brady, but I mean that's.
Well, I don't think
Yeah.
it is for the administration, if they don't have a good relationship with the board, and the board tells them to get rid of
Oh,
it or do
well,
that,
that's true.
I don't think it is a good language for the administration.
It gives them. Well, I was thinking. Yeah, I was.
Yeah,
talking to
that last
corporations
part is,
as
but I think the
whole.
first part is good. I don't think that, but. This one, you know, because we haven't had a riff in quite a few years. We worked really hard on that one. Let's say we go this goes through the process, and this is probably forward thinking, about how, once this gets settled and the legal takes a look at it and the board votes, there's gonna be some education around it. This will scare
Yeah.
people when they find out. A little bit. I just want everybody to have that
Yeah.
full disclosure.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to say no to it. It obviously is the board's decision, but
Mhm.
just with the eyes wide open on it, I think people will go like, okay, help me understand this one better.
I mean,
But how would you revise it so that it wouldn't?
I mean, without going back to just seniority.
Yeah.
Because that'd be my revision. Let's see, I have the language right here. It's called staff reduction. Yeah, we'd have to have a conversation about it, I mean, the co-curricular programs, people are gonna go, okay, so if you can coach, you're safe.
what if we looked at something closer to
Relative.
language we use in there, not for reduction, but that we use in the transfer and the placement?
That list of things, I'd be
Yeah.
more comfortable with that. It's a little bit broader, yeah.
How about if we give that some more thought
Sure.
and we can
Yeah,
pick
Jason,
this
I
one
agree.
up when we meet again, just
Yeah.
because to save time I
Yeah.
need to go to the restroom, so I can't, it's just two of us, so. I think this is a good place to stop, we can pick it back up at 407.5.
No.
And we can determine our next board meeting. I was going to suggest that it's the holidays coming up, we can go with the first Tuesday of January. Are you guys back in school? No. Okay, never mind.
First
How about the 14th?
Tuesday in January.
That's a school board meeting night.
First Tuesday, I think. Yeah, they're back in school.
Yeah, we're back.
Yeah, the first Tuesday is 7th.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
right.
seventh.
Yeah, we are.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was
yeah.
thinking it was the first, I
So,
was like, wait.
I
let's
was
go
too.
back to the 7th of January. Can people
Yeah.
make that work? Because I was like, wait, how long are you guys off for?
Well, I thought it was the first.
Okay.
Oh, we didn't get to that language where we get extended holiday this year.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
like, what? Would January 7th work? There isn't a school board meeting
Yeah.
that night, I
Yeah.
don't think. Okay,
There's good.
good. So we'll
What
go
time?
with 4:30. Is that good? Does that give people time? Okay.
Sure, DSC,
And here,
Yep.
that works.
Okay, and we'll pick back up if people want to give some thought though to 407.5 so we can dive in with some maybe suggestions
Yeah.
and just, because we're just on page 95 of 177.
Did you have a problem, Brady, with the first sentence? Is that what, not, besides the stuff in the yellow, the first sentence of that
I
one
think
where
it
it
was
says,
the-
the board has the exclusive authority to determine, was that a
Oh,
sticking point? Did you want to look at that language?
it does
We
have.
don't need to do it now, but is that something we need to come
I
back?
think that I probably have the same orientation as probably Jason and Steve. When we think RIF, it's almost always financial.
Right.
Which some of these factors, like the change in size of the student population, is going to impact your finances.
And that's just because I read the title and then kind of skipped the intro paragraph thinking, okay, this
Well,
is about
I just
how
think
we're
that
gonna
that
cover
part
But
is
this-
broader than.
This
Right.
is much broader than that.
Right,
which
so I think administratively, it's a
That's good.
pause.
Sorry, Brady.
So,
Well,
alright.
I'm glad you trust the board, that's good.
Is
And I
it-
trust this board, I'm not
Implicitly,
saying that.
I don't know why you're trying to drive a wedge between the board and the administration. And now you guys sound really.
Is the motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Alright, so adjourn at 5:38. 5:38. 5:38. 5:38. 5:38. 5:38. 5:38.